Hello again. Welcome, everybody. Trying to fix this really quick. Give me 1 second. Okay. Cool. Yeah, okay. So, in case you missed it, I'm talking about Vipassana and meditation and all that stuff. Sorry, I just got home, so my mind's still kind of racing. It's been a really busy day. But all the same, we're going to do that for however long. We're just going to talk about... so yesterday was kind of part one. And if you're curious about what I was talking about yesterday, it was mostly my own path with meditation and what got me into it. And then also I was talking about the format of this course/retreat that I went on called the Vipassana, which you can find information about. I think I put a link somewhere. And so Vipassana is kind of a meditation technique. I talked a bit about the technique. Today I'm going to go into a lot more detail on what exactly the technique is, though. And then I'll finish up telling you about my personal experience with this technique and my retreat and that sort of thing. But first, I'm really still kind of my mind. Like I said, I just got home and I've been in a rush all day. It's been a long day, so let's kind of take a couple minutes to let's get back in the mindset. I'm gonna tell you to kind of close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that, and just follow your breath for a minute or two, because I need to do that right now. So, very basic meditation that you can pretty much always do. Just focus on that area at the opening of the nostrils, keep your attention there, and follow the breath going in, breath going out, breath going in, breath going out. And there's some things you can keep track of, is it through the left nostril, the right nostril, or both nostrils? Is it strong? Is it weak? So the point is to also let yourself breathe naturally. And whenever your mind gets distracted, as it always will do, don't worry about what the distraction is. Just slowly, smoothly bring your attention back to that area at the opening of the nostrils. We'll do this a couple minutes because I really need to take a second as well. Feels weird doing this on Facebook Live, but oh well. I find I've been very aware of sensations as I go about my day, too. If you're feeling ambitious and you don't want to just follow the breath, you can also look for any strong sensations in your body and just kind of observe them. Don't really focus on them too hard. Just kind of gently let your attention sit on them. But yeah, let's get started. I'm going to also play a tiny bit. So to recap yesterday, again, I was talking about my own path with meditation. And as I go through all of this, I encourage you to keep track of your breath, keep track of your body, see what sensations come up, see what reactions come up. Just be open to anything, really. Whenever you feel a sensation, don't judge it. Just feel the sensation, see what's going on there. But yeah, so yesterday I was talking about my own path with meditation. I meditated a little more than a year and a quarter, so I meditated since December 2016, that's when I started. And so I'd heard that it's kind of a way to treat anxiety, depression, and that kind of thing. And I was, it's funny, I was thinking about this today. I've been through so many existential crises in my life, in that I've always just, I don't know, my perspective is just constantly changing and broadening and broadening and broadening, and I'm learning all this new stuff, and it's terrifying most of the time, and then I'll break down and then kind of move forward slowly. And so that kind of is what happened in December 2016, really right around Thanksgiving, is that I really contemplated death and non-existence and all that, and meditation's kind of the form of the path that came out of that for me, because I had to kind of force myself to become more comfortable sitting with these things and experiencing them, seeing as they do affect all of us. Oops. So yeah, that's kind of when I started meditating. It was at the recommendation of my therapist. Really, God bless him. He's one of, I think, my greatest teachers in my whole life. So much thanks. Yeah, so I started meditating. I got pretty serious about it in August. Started a really diligent daily practice. I've missed very, very few days since then, probably less than like 10 since August. It really helps to meditate daily. If you start missing days and you're not super serious about it, then the benefits just won't come to you nearly as quickly. It's something you have to take seriously to really experience. Anyway, I came to Colorado School of Mines, met a bunch of really great meditators who led guided sessions, began really experiencing the benefits of meditation, and I met some really pure-minded people. My friend Delaney, who I mentioned yesterday, she'd been on a Vipassana last year, and I always, whenever I think of her, she just has such a pure mind and such a positive outlook, and so I was kind of curious how I could bring more of that into my own life. And so part of it is, I read about this Vipassana thing, and it's a technique to purify the mind, and a technique to eradicate suffering from just about in any form. So naturally I was pretty curious about it, and so today we'll go more into how that actually works. But I finally resolved to go on a retreat for 10 days, learn the technique, devote myself to the technique, surrender to it, and that's what I just got back from on Sunday, so that was like really recent, a couple days ago. And I've been slowly readjusting to society, which has been really strange, but we've been doing it though. And yeah, so that's kind of where my meditation practice is at. And so right now I'm meditating twice daily, about an hour and 5 minutes each time. So it's a pretty big time commitment, but honestly, I couldn't imagine meditating for any less than that after doing this retreat, because I just wouldn't take it seriously enough. And we'll go into why that is in a little while. Basically, I need to meditate for that long to make sure that I feel some sort of pain, because if I don't feel any pain, I'm not really gonna work as hard, So you really, I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll get there. The other thing I was telling you about was the format of the course. So first thing you would notice if you went to this course is it's basically, I was thinking about this, it's a really silly idea, but basically it's just a bunch of people standing around in silence, like looking at bugs and walking around in the woods and stuff. You would think everyone's just like doing drugs or something, but that's like completely not what they're doing at all. I mean, it's a meditative retreat, so it's completely silent. You're not allowed to look at people, touch people, or talk to people. And the point is to keep your direction of energy kind of going inward to really experience the stillness for 10 days straight. Not a word. And so you meditate roughly 12 hours a day, and on breaks, there's walks and stuff through there's short trails through the woods. I walk that path it's maybe a quarter of a mile long, so, and there's not really anywhere else to walk. So I walk that path probably like 100 times in the 10 days. You go out for a break, you walk the path. You go out for a break, you walk the path, etc. So that's the format of the course. You get up every morning at 4, meditate 2 hours, breakfast, break, meditate, lunch, break, meditate, fruit, break, meditate, lesson, so discourse kind of thing, and then meditate, and then go to bed. And that's like your whole day. As you can tell, a lot of meditation in there. It's mostly, I think you do more meditation than any other thing, which I guess would make sense, because what else would you do on a meditation retreat, and so the point is, so the silence is to keep your direction of energy and attention flowing inward, to really experience that stillness. The other thing you do is take 5 precepts. So the idea here is, if you want to live a healthy life, you need a healthy lifestyle. So the 5 precepts you take are: you can't kill anything, and that includes eating vegetarian. You can't steal anything. You can't tell any lies. You also can't talk, so that one's pretty easy. You can't have any sexual activity of any kind. And the last one is no intoxicants of any kind. So no drugs or alcohol. Because again, the energy flow is supposed to be inward. And that's how you get the most out of it. And you do this for 10 days, and so from this healthy lifestyle, you develop kind of mastery over your own mind, which we'll talk about how that happens. And then from that develops great wisdom of your own experience of life, basically. So I'll go through now the course itself, because that's kind of where we left off yesterday. And then after I go and talk about the course itself, I'll tell you about my own personal experience with it, my kind of day-to-day, what I was working with, that sort of thing. Okay, so course itself. How do you develop all this stuff? We were talking a lot about Buddhism, and the ultimate goal of doing something like this is to pull suffering out of your life, and to really put in the work towards doing that. It's to recognize that most everyday life is ignorant. It's full of things like craving and aversion, so you feel something good and you want more of it, or you feel something bad and you want to get rid of it. And so this is kind of what leads to suffering, at least in the Buddhist idea of the world. And they see this as a universal law. So even though it's a Buddhist idea, theoretically it applies to everyone, and that's called the Dhamma, the law of nature. And so by going to a course like this, the goal is to kind of notice these things in yourself and work through them. And so a lot of what I'll talk about is my own personal working through them. But how does this happen, though? You're developing all these good qualities in yourself. You renounce your life of suffering, and you recognize that the path you're on is kind of, there's pain in it and a lot of suffering. You live a healthy lifestyle. You put forward a lot of effort. You tolerate others who, not everyone is on the same path as you, obviously, and there's so many distractions in the world that will try to push you off the path, but that you have to tolerate. You have to be truthful. I was talking yesterday about this a lot. If you lie, the Buddhists firmly believe that it hurts you more than whoever you've lied to, because it's all about the lifestyle. It's all about staying pure, basically, and that's why the lifestyle is so important too. You need very strong determination to actually be able to sit through all this stuff. If you don't have this determination, you will struggle a lot more, actually. Well, I guess that makes sense. But if you're not fully set, like, I'm going to do this, if there's any doubt in your mind, then it's just going to multiply and get larger and larger, and you'll never make it. You'll develop wisdom, and you'll develop equanimity, develop compassion and selfless love, which is always super important, especially in today's world. It's really important to connect with people and help others and stuff. And last but not least, you have the option to donate and kind of pass it forward. Interesting thing about these courses is they're free for new students. In fact, they won't even take your money unless you've done a course before. So on the last day, you can give a donation, but the point of the donation isn't to pay for the course necessarily. It's to recognize I got something positive out of this, and I want to pay it forward so that someone else in the future will. And the amount that you pay doesn't really matter. It's everyone according to their own intention, their volition, their ability, and their own mind, basically. If you want to donate X amount, go donate X amount. But the expectation is you don't expect anything in return. And that's how you really benefit yourself from this act of giving. You don't expect anything. So that's super important. Okay, sorry, I get so sidetracked when I do these things. I was going to tell you about the course itself, and now I'm going to do that. So how do you develop all of these qualities? So it's a 10-day course, and you kind of start on the surface and then move inward. Here, let me... So you start kind of on the surface and then move inward. So a lot of people do these courses that have never meditated before, and God bless them, because that's got to be really hard. I've been meditating for like a year, and I still found it really hard. But so the start on the first 3 days, you do what's called Anapana meditation. So it's not even Vipassana at that point. Anapana is just single point of focus on the breath, breath going in, breath going out. And so this develops over 3 days, because on day 1, you're just watching the breath go in, breath go out. On day 2, you start paying attention to the touch of the breath within the nose. So see if you can feel that, I guess. Breathe through your nose and see if you can feel a physical sensation of touch within your nostrils of the air flowing over it. It's a little harder than just watching the air flow in and out, obviously, but yeah, like I can feel it in there. Then you focus on any sensations in this area, so outside of the nostrils, inside of the nostrils, including the triangular area above the lips. And so the idea is by keeping your attention on just this area, which is a pretty small area, you'll sharpen your mind to be able to be very specific and look very deeply into things later, which is super important. And then after that, you pay no attention to the breath whatsoever, but you pay just attention to this area right here, right above the lips, below the nostrils. And the idea is you don't pay any attention to the breath itself, you just pay attention to the sensations on that tiny area. And so it's a very small area, right? So it really develops your mind to go into this, and naturally you get distracted and your mind wanders and does this and that, but you come back to it, and that's kind of the point. And that's how you develop your attention. Very simple meditation instructions. You can, if you guys are curious about starting to meditate, that's all you really need to do. Just pay attention to sensations in this area. And the other big thing is develop equanimity, which we were talking about all the time yesterday. And equanimity means you're not reacting to these things, you're just observing them. And that's super important because, as we talked about, reaction is kind of the source of all suffering, and you're trying to get rid of suffering. You're trying to get rid of this old bad habit pattern of your mind, so that means no reaction for you. Okay, so you start with Anapana to focus on the breath and sharpen the mind. Okay, so day 4 you start Vipassana meditation instead of these little Anapana meditations. So this is kind of what you went for, right? You wanted to learn Vipassana. This is where we jump in. So Vipassana meditation, I described yesterday, it can be translated as insight meditation, meaning insight into the quote-unquote true nature of reality, whatever that is. Big part of that actually is the true nature of reality is unique to every person who experiences it. So. But by gaining this insight into your own experience, you gain insight into your own true nature of your own reality or whatever. Another vague translation of Vipassana, which is more technical, would be body scanning. So I'll explain the meditation now. So instead of just paying attention to this area here or this area here, now what you do is starting here at the very top of the head, you pay attention to sensations all over, and you go part by part, piece by piece, throughout the entire body. You do both arms. The idea is you don't want to miss a single spot because you're essentially activating every patch of skin that you have and trying to feel something in every part of your body. And as you do this, you're developing your faculty of awareness and to feel sensations all the time, which is very important. So as you develop this faculty, it becomes stronger, and you quickly discover. I quickly discovered a lot of kind of bad sensations. I discovered a lot of pain. I don't want to sit here for an hour and not move an inch. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But that's kind of what you start with, because these habit patterns of reacting are so ingrained in the mind that that's what you kind of start with. You start by feeling a lot of pain, and you have to teach yourself, I'm going to feel this pain and not react to it in a negative way. Because once you start reacting in a negative way, your balance of the mind, it gets off balance. And that's when you begin to actually suffer because of the pain as opposed to just feel the pain. So it's kind of weird to think about, but if you resist the pain, you'll hurt more, I guess, is the point. Whereas if you just calmly observe it, and this is really something you have to practice and experience for yourself. You probably wouldn't believe me if I just told you this. But if you actually just observe the pain and sit with it, it's a lot less painful because it's just sensation. It's just a feeling on, your arm or your leg or whatever's going on for you. Okay, so day 4, you start that. You begin to move your point of focus all over the body. And again, the idea is to really develop your faculty of awareness on every single body part so that you're constantly feeling all over. You know, all these things happen in your daily life, and it's important to be aware of the sensations as they happen, I guess, is the best way to put it. Because you don't want to react to something happens and your thoughts start going, oh, this is good, this is bad. You know, oh, they did that? Oh, you can't do that. Like, blah, 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 blah. With every thought, there's always a sensation. This is actually kind of a law. Anytime you're thinking something, there's a feeling somewhere in your body that kind of corresponds to it. And so if you become much more aware of your body, you'll begin to focus on the sensation and not the thought. And this is super important if you ever want to, you know, eradicate suffering in your life and eradicate pain and all that and purify your mind. Because the mind is so reactive, and it's so, it reacts with craving towards good stuff and aversion towards bad stuff. And that's kind of what it always will do. If you get trapped inside your head, you'll never really make progress towards enlightenment. It's so surface level, it's always changing. Whereas the sensation, on the sensation level, this is kind of the foundation of that thought. The thought kind of comes from the sensation, not the other way around. The sensation doesn't come from the thought. And so if you feel a sensation instead, you can begin to not react to it. You can begin to productively work with whatever you're feeling, with whatever is happening to you at this particular moment. So obviously, super important thing, if you want to keep your peace of mind and stuff, you go below the surface level to the sensation level, and then that's where you work. And that's where you do your work for these, 10 days. And so your faculty of awareness and equanimity will develop significantly over the 10 days because of that, because of this increased attention towards your body sensations. Side note, since coming back from this retreat, it's really unfortunate because when you're there, it's so calm and still and peaceful, and you're not touching anyone and you're not talking to anyone and whatever, that your attention is so strong within the framework of your own body. And then, you start talking to people after the retreat, and you go back to modern life and this and that, and it's all crazy. There's so much going on all the time. You lose a lot of attention if you're not careful. So I've been kind of trying to work with that a lot over the past 3 days since I've come back. And I've noticed significantly that, my awareness of my body is just significantly less. And this is kind of bound to happen when you're comparing your feelings on a meditation retreat with feelings in everyday life, right? And it kind of makes sense that it would be that way. But all the same, I kind of miss, being super aware of everything that's always happening to me. And I'm, not reacting to it in here. I'm reacting to it out here, and I'm working with it. Okay, so recapping just very briefly. So you begin with Anapana, work with smaller and smaller areas, sharpen the mind. Excuse me. And then you begin Vipassana. And so the goal of Vipassana is twofold, actually. It's not just to increase your awareness of these individual sensations and stuff. The other goal is to actually break up the body and break up the physical structure, because after you break up the physical structure, you can begin to really break up the mental structure. And if you want to become enlightened, both of these things both need to go. Because when you do become enlightened, you're not living in your body, you're not living in your mind, you're just living in this kind of beyond realm of just pure energy, pure sensation, which is really cool to think about, but unless you experience it, it's really hard to, what's that? I don't know. But yeah, so Vipassana, though, the goal is not only to feel, but to break up the body. And so that's done through this repeated action of, part by part, piece by piece. You're activating everything and getting better at feeling in every single part of your body. And this is so important because as you go more into it, you can get more in depth. So you start just going like this, just literally individual parts, individual areas, maybe yay big. Then what you start doing is you go symmetrically down the body. So you try to pay attention to, both arms at the same time, or both sides of my front at the same time, both legs at the same time. And this really develops your faculty of awareness and attention. It takes a lot of attention to be able to watch two things at once, but, doing it and practicing it, your mind gets a lot sharper, and you go further into these sensations, and you just watch, you just observe. That's the point. You're not trying to induce sensations or feel particular things. You're not trying to feel good things. You're not trying to feel bad things. You're just trying to feel things and observe them objectively and not react. And that's where the work goes in. So that's why you need to develop your attention this way. After you develop this symmetry, what you can begin to do is focus on the sensations themselves. So these sensations, are they strong? Are they like solid feeling? Are they what you might call gross sensations? And so at first they very much will be. And so the gross sensations basically just have much greater intensity. But as you go part by part, piece by piece, observing these, the gross sensations break apart too. And this is when it gets really, really interesting. So after you've broken apart the gross sensations, you begin to experience life as subtle vibrations. You begin to experience your own body as subtle vibrations everywhere. And this can only really happen if you very deeply concentrate your mind. Because if your mind is solid, then you will feel solid sensations. But if you're able to calm it enough, you'll realize that every single thing that you feel has some vibrational frequency that you can tune into. And so once you do this is when a lot of really crazy shit starts happening. So you're still going symmetrically down the body, feeling these subtle vibrations in every single part. And this is really something you have to experience. You can hear me talk about it, but you probably might not even know what I mean. But okay, so you feel the subtle sensations, and you're still going part by part, piece by piece. But then you realize that once you're feeling, say, all the same vibration in this area, or, you know, this area, say my entire arm is feeling the same subtle vibration, my attention can flow over it extremely effectively and extremely awarely over the entire body part in, you know, like a half a second. I can cover my entire arm just like that. And then I can cover this entire arm just like that. And this won't work if you have any gross solid sensations because you'll get stuck, you know? But if you're able to break those up and you just feel the vibration everywhere in your body, your attention will flow freely just all over, and you'll feel so much, and it's all just subtle vibration. You're just vibrating. Once your free flow of attention can go body part by body part, then you can do a free flow of attention literally over your entire body. And so there's a famous saying in Buddhism, in one breath, you scan the whole body. In one out-breath, you scan, you know, feet to head. In one in-breath, you scan head to feet. And you feel every sensation in your entire body, every vibration, literally in the amount of time it takes you to inhale or exhale. And so what you've done is you're breaking apart this physical structure and the mental structure enough that you can just flow through it. You can basically swim in your own vibration. And so then what you can do, it doesn't really stop. You know, this technique gets more and more advanced until eventually, I'll tell you in a sec. So once you can feel the entire body on the surface level in a single breath and flow really fast, you know, do this and that, then you can go within the body and you can feel literally inside your head and inside your chest and inside, you know, your arms and all this stuff. And you're still flowing incredibly quickly, and you're noticing any sensation outside or inside, and you're just working with it and being equanimous towards it. You can't react to it if you want this to work. You can't say, oh my God, this feels amazing. Even though it really feels so good. It feels like, oh man. But if you start reacting, it'll stop. You won't be able to do it anymore. Your mind needs its balance to be able to do this, and that's why you go on a retreat and, you know, don't talk to anyone or look at anyone for 10 days. You know, this doesn't even start happening until maybe the 6th day. And I'll tell you about my own personal experience in a minute, but I'm going to finish explaining this. So you go beneath the surface and you're feeling the entire body. And so it's just vibration everywhere, inside, outside. You start doing planes. You can literally scan a plane through your body, inside and outside at the same time. You know, you can go this way, up, down. You could go cross, you know, it doesn't matter. The point is that you're just going through and through and through again and again and again, and any sensation that you're feeling, you're letting it rise naturally and fall naturally, and you're just feeling its vibration at this point. And eventually, if you do this, kind of the ultimate goal is a state called Bunga. And so what Bunga means is dissolution. Your physical structure dissolves. You recognize the fact that your entire body is just vibration, and that you actually essentially lose contact with your body. I actually haven't experienced this, so I can't explain it fully well, maybe. But Bunga is a state of bodilessness where everything you're experiencing, head to feet, is pure vibration, and your entire body is vibrating together. And so when this happens, you can test if it's happening. And so to do that, you kind of poke a tiny area, maybe the size of a fingertip, anywhere on your body. And if your immediate reaction of like probing yourself is you feel electrified in every single part of your body. You can sense this kind of poking. That's what Banga is. You have achieved a state of bodilessness. And so what you're supposed to do if you do eventually feel this Banga, this state of bodilessness, is you focus on your spine. And so I've read a little, or I've talked to, I've talked to a few people about this. And so the spine is, there's a lot of nervous system stuff going on in there. And when you closely pay attention to your spine and kind of activate it, you basically increase the electrical current through there. And so don't try this at home, because I've heard you can actually go crazy if you're not careful. Like, actually legitimately psychosis crazy. So don't just mess around with your spine and your attention. But if you're in this deep state of relaxation, equanimity, Banga, if you go up and down your spine, it's extremely pleasant from what I've heard. And any sensation, you've gone to such a deep part of the mind, and so any old habit pattern, it's called a sankhara, the things that cause you to suffer, which are these old habit patterns of the mind of craving and of aversion, you'll experience these as solid parts within your spine. And so the only way to move over the solid part and move over the old habit pattern and let it go is to kind of just observe it as you would any other sensation. And so you won't get stuck on it. And yeah, so the ultimate goal of Vipassana meditation, this, here, it's to develop this faculty of breaking apart your own body to the point where you no longer have a body. And you're just observing the subtle vibrations flowing through you in every single part, because these are deeply related to your old habit patterns of the mind, your habit patterns of suffering, of reaction, of craving, of aversion, of ignorance. And so once you become fully aware of every single sensation and they all connect and vibrate together, that is when you can achieve the state of Banga. Now, it's important to note that Banga, while it is a state of bodilessness, is not a state of enlightenment, because Banga is not the ultimate goal. I mentioned before, Banga is extremely pleasant, and so it's very easy to crave this state because it's so unbelievably present. I've talked to people who had done these courses like a couple times, and they're like, yeah, I've experienced Banga, the bodilessness. And they say it's better than, any drug they've ever taken or any, sex they've ever had. It's the best feeling, basically, in the world, from what I've heard. Again, I haven't experienced this, but this is what I've heard. And so if you crave that feeling, you're not doing yourself any favors, because the point is to purify the mind. It's to eliminate the craving. It's not to get into this crazy, somewhat psychedelic-sounding, bodiless, really intense meditative state. However, if you are able to go that deep, you're able to feel very deep habit patterns that will eventually emerge and naturally let themselves out, and you will be freed of these things. So it is only by going into this deepest state of the mind that you can really cut the deepest root of suffering. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time and a lot of effort to remain equanimous in that environment. But it's really cool to know that that is what this meditation can become. It's not even the goal necessarily. It's important to the goal is really to work with any sensation as it arises. It's not necessarily to dissolve the body and do this and that, because if that's not what your body is trying to give you, then it's not what is going to happen anyway. But it's cool that this meditation can lead to that. And to just really feel on such a powerful level all these incredible vibrations constantly happening is just fascinating. It fascinates me that you can just do that. So, yeah, pretty ridiculous stuff, like complete dissolution of the physical structure will eventually lead to complete dissolution of the mental structure. One thing that I didn't really hit on yesterday is that the nature of suffering is because of ignorance, craving, and aversion. And so these things lead to suffering because in the end, they're all impermanent. The law of impermanence is super important. Is super important. And so the reason that these lead to suffering is the physical and mental structure are as impermanent as the sensations themselves. And this is the mindset that you need to recognize, and to get to the pure state where you're not clinging to this physical structure or this mental structure. You're just allowing it to be, because you'll die one day, and all of this will change. Anicca. It changes. And because of this, by experiencing on this sensational level that everything changes, that everything that rises also falls, you eventually recognize that you too rise and fall. But the point isn't to get upset about this, because that's a reaction. The point is to remain perfectly equanimous and to accept every sensation as it comes. And even when this realization, oh my God, I'm going to die, comes, you just stay perfectly solid, because you're not supposed to fear death. You're just supposed to accept it and use it as a great teacher for how to live your life. Because only if you can accept death can you accept life. So it's kind of interesting that that's how this meditation ends up going. I don't know if many of you would have expected it to be kind of like that or not, but that's kind of how it goes in theory. And so I will give me 1 second. Oh, so actually, just fun side note fact. So I mentioned you're breaking up the body, breaking up the physical structure to smaller and smaller levels. So the Buddha, who is obviously a master of this technique, I'm not sure if he was the very first, I'm guessing he probably was one of the very first people to predict the existence of atoms. The Buddha meditated so hard, and he broke his body up into tinier and tinier pieces, but he discovered that there is a piece that can't be broken up anymore. And he predicted the existence of the atom based on this. And it's this, tiny, tiny thing. With his own mind, he was able to predict that atoms exist. And so, obviously, in Buddhism, there's a lot of different qualities and stuff. The Buddha predicted that all atoms have 8 parts. They have 4 elements: the earth element, water element, fire element, and air element, and then 4 characteristics of each element. But that isn't as important. The fact is that you can break up into smaller and smaller pieces all the way down into the atom. And so what the Buddha also realized is once he did break up all the way down to the atom, he realized that it's constantly changing. He predicted that the atom was changing something like 1 trillion times a second. And modern science could say other stuff about that, but the idea is, even on the most fundamental, tiny, broken up level, change is occurring constantly. And this is exactly why suffering is what happens when you try to cling and try to resist this changing nature of everything. So that's kind of the technique. So continuing. So that's kind of the meditation technique. So you start again with 3 days of Anapana, focus on the breath to sharpen the mind. And then once you begin the body scanning aspects of it, you're really challenged to remain equanimous and to go deeper and to really use your faculty of awareness and balance and equanimity to examine yourself, essentially, and to cut the roots of pain as they arise. The idea here also is old habit patterns of pain and suffering, old habit patterns of any kind are what are called sankharas. And so sankhara means that you feel a particular sensation and you react to it. And so as you're on a meditation retreat like this, the goal is to not produce any new sankharas. New sankharas meaning sensations are arising, but you're not reacting to them. Because if you do react to them, they kind of get stored within your mind. And actually, it's a common thing for people who meditate to have just random memories come up at random times, and the reason is because of these sankharas. Just random sensations cause some synapse to fire in your brain, and the connection is made, and a random thing comes out. Again, you're working at the physical level here, though, and not the mental level, so eventually that kind of goes away, too. But you find your memory is pretty whack. It goes all over the place. Anyway, so as you're not producing any new sankharas, the old ones bubble up to the surface, and then they kind of force you to address them again, in a way. You'll feel pain, or you'll feel aversion towards something, or a pleasant sensation, and so you'll be challenged to either react or to not. And the goal is, if you don't react, then the sankhara will get released, and if you do react, then it will stay within you. And this is how you purify the mind on the most fundamental level. The habit patterns of the mind come up, and they come out, and you're forced to look at them and have a good look, and either you let them go or you don't. And it gets hard because, as you go deeper into the mind, you have pretty great pain in there. But it's really maintaining your balance that is what gets you through. If your mind is perfectly balanced and you have perfect equanimity and really great faculty of equanimity, there's no pain that you will not suffer. And there's no craving that you will give into. You'll just stay perfectly flat, and each of these things you'll let go of, and you'll be better off for letting go of them. You have to be confident in that, otherwise it won't work. Otherwise you'll feel pain and say, oh no, I'm not going to get anything out of suffering this pain, so you'll move posture or whatever. So this is kind of the rule of the course. You start with these Anapana meditations. Day 4 they introduce Vipassana. They also introduce what are called sits of strong determination. I think I briefly mentioned these yesterday. And so the sits of strong determination are basically, the strong determination aspect of it is whatever happens, don't move. Basically, you should have strong determination that whatever happens, you won't move. So you won't open your eyes, you won't open your hands, and you won't open your legs, is another way to think of it. And no matter what pain comes, and no matter what craving comes, or, this or that, you won't do anything about it. You'll just sit there, and you'll sit through it. And you need strong determination to do this, so they kind of dedicate hour blocks of sittings of strong determination, where you're really focused on just keeping this balance. And in case you need any extra, it's basically just a little extra motivation, because you shouldn't really move when you're meditating anyway. But by having these sittings of strong determination, everyone is kind of pushing themselves a little harder. And the other thing, so that's introduced on day 4. Then on day 7, they introduce this idea of continuous practice. And so the teacher would always say, continuity of practice is the secret of success. And I always thought this meant just show up, just be at the meditation center 24/7. Don't let your mind go too crazy, whatever. But just show up for the meditations and make sure you're there and continue to meditate, etc. Turns out what continuity of practice really is even when you're not meditating, you're still meditating. You're always letting your mind rest on whatever sensations it's feeling, and you're always allowing yourself to feel equanimously, balancedly, I don't know if that's a word, but with balance, any sensation in your entire body, and you just observe. And this occurs when you're meditating and when you're not meditating. You go home and you're just observing your footsteps as you're walking. And if that's too hard, because sometimes it's kind of soft or subtle, you can always return to the breath and stay there for a little while, because that's always with you. Breath is a pretty fundamental object for meditation. But another interesting thing about this is when you go to sleep, or when you try to go to sleep, you're still supposed to remain aware of all these sensations. And so they say because of this, a lot of people don't sleep. Instead, they're just constantly feeling sensations all night. In fact, the Buddha didn't sleep just about ever. you just feel the sensations all night perfectly equanimously, letting his mind rest on these sensations and letting his mind, feel whatever comes up without reacting to it. But he wouldn't fall asleep. And yet, when you get up the next day, you feel like you've had the best night's rest ever, because the mind has rested on such a deep level, even though you didn't even become unconscious at any point. That didn't happen to me. I still fell asleep even during, it's not like you can just tell yourself, I'm going to do this perfectly and not fall asleep and stuff. But either way, that's kind of how it goes. So when you get up, you're always aware. When you're meditating, you're always aware. I stopped taking naps because of this on those last couple days. I had taken a nap just about every day before that, but I kind of wanted to try this out, right? So I think it was day 7 in the morning. I was like, okay, or day 8 in the morning. I was like, I'm going to try this out. And I sat down in this one spot, and I stopped paying attention to what my eyes were seeing. I stopped paying attention to, what I was feeling. Well, not feeling, I guess, but hearing and smelling and touching. But not in such a way that I wasn't aware of it, but more that my attention was all on the sensations. And I was just letting my mind relax more and more and more. And not paying attention to distractions of thought, which naturally arise, but just going into the body deeper, deeper, deeper. And in literally less than 10 minutes, I felt like I had slept for I got a good night's rest, and I was awake for the rest of the day. Just literally by letting yourself fall into this really restful peace of mind for a little while is unbelievably restful, because the mind is essentially allowed to just rest and do its own, to control and regulate itself. And when you let the mind actually do this, it's very good to you. It keeps its peace very well. So anyway, that's continuity of practice begins on day 7, and then the other kind of day milestone is on day 10. And so day 10 isn't as much of like a work day, because the next day you're going to go back to the real world, and if you haven't kind of closed up this brain operation, then it's not going to be pleasant. So day 10, the silence is broken. You're allowed to interact with other people once again. It's called a metta day. Metta is a meditation. It's translated as love and compassion. And so you do a couple meditations, or really you add on to your meditations practice of just expanding love and extending it to all beings. I don't think I actually wrote much about what metta is, but just briefly talking about that a little further, I mentioned before you feel all these very subtle vibrations of your whole body when you go deeply into Vipassana. And so when you practice metta, it's at the end of the Vipassana practice, which usually gets pretty painful, so you're allowed to relax, stretch out, lie down, whatever. And you're still extremely aware of these subtle vibrations coursing through your body, and they're your vibrations. You're just aware of your own vibrations everywhere. And metta is all about just feeling the vibrations, letting them extend as far as possible, and you feel this powerful energy just being released from you. And it's really an amazing thing. I love metta practice, and I barely do it. I think the only reason I can do it is because I'm decently experienced at Vipassana now, so I can really feel the vibrations and the sensations. But it's something, if you guys are curious about trying, look up a 10-minute metta meditation video on YouTube, and I'm sure you could find instructions. You don't have to do this practice for a long time to even feel it. It's all just about finding these extremely deep vibrations running through you and extending them beyond your body, which is kind of the opposite of what you're doing during Vipassana, because in Vipassana you're really observing them within the framework of your body on a very localized level. I didn't mention that before, but it's super important that if I'm scanning through my body and my attention's here, I'm not aware of anywhere else on my body. My entire attention is on this point, and I'm not visualizing this point in my mind. I'm literally feeling it from here, and the same goes for any point on your body. That's what real attention is in this meditation practice. It's very easy to get wrapped up in visualization of the body. So literally visualizing, I'm going part by part, piece by piece, but you're not. You're going in here where you should be going on here. So that's kind of what the technique is all about, and how it's taught and stuff. So, and last but not least, here, take a few mindful breaths while we're transitioning here. Last but not least, I'm going to tell you guys about my own personal experience throughout this whole retreat, things I learned, things I struggled with, etc. So. If you can meditate with me playing here, but I'm not going to stop playing because I like playing. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about my own experience, and I'll leave this going for a little while at least. So I'll go through day by day, kind of what I was feeling, what I was thinking, and it's important to note that on each particular day, I came up with a phrase of some sort that I kind of kept with me throughout the whole thing. In retrospect, I wish I just lived in the moment and like didn't worry about that sort of thing, but it kept happening day after day, like a phrase would pop into my head. So I was like, I'm just going to keep track of these, and I wrote them all down afterwards, and I've been kind of reflecting on each of them and using them to kind of build my own, I don't know, they help, you know, they're like a piece of advice for healthy living, and some, you'll see. Okay, so day one, the quote I have, or quote, the piece of advice is, you are far stronger than you know, actually than you could ever imagine. Even when you're at your weakest, you're so much stronger than you could ever freaking imagine. Because the idea here is, I think very early on, I knew, like, oh man, this is going to be really hard. And day one, I mean, it's just day one. I haven't even gone into this yet, but you're sitting there, breath going in, breath going out, breath going in. And it's like, your attention is strained to just sit there doing that for 12 hours. I don't think I could do anything for 12 hours except maybe play guitar. In fact, many days I have played guitar for, like, I think the longest I played one day was 15 hours. It was crazy. I didn't eat, I didn't, you know, move or anything. Oh, I don't think I could do that again. It was crazy. But Anyway, I'm getting distracted. No, so you're just watching the breath, in, out, in, out, in, out, all day for like 12 hours on day 1. And your mind is really resisting this because it's likes to get distracted. It's going blah, 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 you know, and you're just trying, no, breath going in, breath going out, breath, but blah, blah, blah. You get the idea, I think. If you've ever tried to meditate, you know this is a real thing. Like, it's not easy to stay focused on the breath, on the meditation object for more than a few seconds at first, you know, because your mind just wants to do all this other stuff and it won't let you. Now imagine sitting down and struggling through that for 12 hours in a day. By the 12th hour, you're just so tired. You're like, I don't want to watch the breath. But it's the determination to go back to it and to keep coming back to it that really helps you progress. So yeah, I think I knew pretty much from the beginning that this would be really hard. So it's kind of nice that this piece of wisdom really came to me that quickly. It's funny. I'd been on one other 10-day thing in my life before. Not a meditation retreat. It was a 10-day hike, and we hiked like 80 to 90 miles in those 10 days. And it was in New Mexico. Actually, it was the first time I'd been to Colorado. And that was a trip called Philmont. I was in 11th grade, or it was the summer between 10th and 11th grade, I think. And up until this point, that had been the hardest experience of my life, because you're hiking, like, we would alternate long days and short days. So you'd hike maybe 5 miles one day, and then the next day you'd hike about 15 or 20, and it's really exhausting, you know? But those 10 days, I learned so much about myself. You know, you continuously just run at walls, basically, and push yourself through them. You know, it's not like you're not going to finish the trip. I mean, I guess there are scenarios in which you could foresee maybe you, like, can't continue. But it's all a mental battle, and if your mind is in the right place, your body will continue, you know, and that's so important to realize. You know, if your mind is in the right place, you can do anything. You can hike 15 miles in a day, you can meditate 12 hours in a day. It's all about keeping that balance and knowing that you can do this if you just, you know, stay balanced, stay equanimous. And so that's such an important realization that I'm really glad I came to on the first day, because I kept it with me for the rest of the days. Like, okay, like, even when I would struggle, I would stay positive, and like that's what got me through this whole thing. It was, again, the hardest thing I've ever done, but so worthwhile. The most worthwhile thing I've ever done as well. So yeah, at first your mind is really resisting the practice for like 12 hours a day, and that's fine. Like, it's day 1, you know, whatever. Okay, day 2. Every moment is precious. So you recognize pretty quickly that I'm only going to be here for 10 days, and I only have so much time to really focus and work, really. You're there to work. You're not there to really do much else. You're not there to have a good time. You know, you don't just go on, oh, meditation retreat, that sounds so relaxing. You think afterwards, maybe, that it's relaxing and you feel more relaxed in your everyday life, but the meditation retreat itself, oh my freaking God, that was one of the most exhausting things I've ever done. It was not relaxing in the slightest. But you're there to work, and every moment is precious, because every moment you have the opportunity to work, and that's how you work. You have to put in the work. You have to stay motivated and determined. I'm going to work through this. You know, I'm going to keep sitting in this pain and like do this and that, and etc. Okay, so you only have 10 days here. You got to make the most of it. On the second day, your pain and your frustration get more and more intense. You know, I'll tell you, for the first like 6 days, I was just experiencing more and more pain every day. It was awful. It was really bad. But I was talking before about this, you're going deeper into the mind, and of course this is what you're finding. You're finding these ingrained habit patterns just below the surface that are really powerful in terms of making you suffer all the time. And by sitting through them and by working with them, that's how you purify yourself with them. Okay? On day 2, I remember this feeling of just like, holy shit, what the heck am I doing here? Like, oh, this is awful. I'm just gonna sit through pain for 10 days? This sucks. Like, I don't want to be here. But, you know, I didn't quit, obviously, but that's kind of the feeling in my mind, that, like, it wasn't enjoyable. You know, it's not enjoyable for maybe until day 7 or 8, but even then, it's not that enjoyable. It's just you realize you can do it, and it's enjoyable to know I can do this and I'm benefiting from this. But day 2, it's like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Like, I hate this. I don't like oatmeal and prunes. I don't want to eat oatmeal and prunes every day for 10 days. But you know, you're peaceful and you're calm and you're introspective, and that's what matters. And you realize that this feeling of, holy shit, what am I doing here? It's only temporary. It's you know, you maybe feel it in the morning and then it'll come back in the afternoon or whatever, but it also passes. You know, there's a lot of times when you feel, okay, like I'm just gonna go meditate and that's what I'm here to do and that's what I'm gonna do. So that's the more important realization there, you know? But on day 2, my mental structure was still extremely turbulent, you know, and this is because you're discovering these cravings and aversions within your own mind. So I mentioned that most of these things manifest physically when you would maybe expect them to be mentally, but off the meditation cushion though, my mind is just going a million miles an hour. Think about this, you know, craving, aversion. And it's just so exhausting to live in this way where you're just constantly craving things and you're constantly saying, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, because they're constantly popping into your mind. Your mind just perpetuates it and goes faster and faster, and you're just good, bad, and it's so tiring. It's awful. So you begin to realize that this turbulence is maybe not the best thing for you, and then you should maybe, like, you know, try to be peaceful more and stuff. But anyway, so during those first, like, 5 days, I craved just about everything, you know, like, it's funny, so eventually the silence is broken on the 10th day and you can talk to other people and stuff, and so I mentioned one of the precepts is no sexual activity of any kind, and a lot of the people I was talking to, a lot of the guys were like, yeah, I was thinking about sex like 95% of that time, which is fair, like, your mind craves these things, and, you know, this will all get better if I could just blank, you know, I mean, maybe for some people it's sex, for some people it's, you know, drugs, alcohol, whatever. I crave just about everything in the world, I admit to that, you know, it is what it is. The other thing is you can't wear quote-unquote scented perfumes or shaving creams or whatever, so I wasn't wearing deodorant these 10 days, and I was showering every day, I was, you know, soaping and whatever, but, like, I just wanted to wear deodorant one day, and I was sitting in my room on day 2, and I'm like, I just want to wear deodorant, and I started crying about it, because I just so quickly was in such an emotional state, I just wanted to wear deodorant, but I couldn't, and it was so sad, and I cried, and it was bad. I cried every single day of the first 8 days, but I'll get to that. Okay, but that was day 2 anyway, and so again, we're doing sensations of the breath still at this point, nothing too crazy, but, like, you're doing it so long every day, and you get kind of bored of it, maybe, I don't know. Day 3, so the thought I had here was authenticity is backed by real feelings, and so reflecting on this more, I think it's completely the opposite of the truth, because more accurate to say would be that the mind is the source of all things, and the reason that authenticity is not necessarily backed by real feelings, since the mind is the root of all things, feelings are incredibly deceptive, and that's kind of the problem with this line of thought. So more accurate to say would be that the mind is the source, and that if you want to really be authentic, you have to purify the mind, and you have to understand the root and purify the mind at the root, and then authenticity would be backed by real feelings. But until then, the mind will deceive you, and it will go and go, because it likes its habit patterns, it likes to cling, it likes to feel pain and aversion and stuff. So you have to be very wary of your own mind, and this is something I've kind of known for a while. You know, whenever I feel, oh, this sucks, I should do that, I'm always like, well, do I really feel that way, or is it just because I don't want something else? And so I've always kind of tried to let things pass, really, before acting, is I guess the best way you could think of it. It's funny that this thought came into me, and so the first 3 days I had been thinking about this particular girl that I know, and that I had this giant crush on, right? And, you know, it's just, there's so much craving in here, and it's craving, and so I'm sitting at lunch, and this thought comes to me, like, how do I know if I actually like this girl or not, or if it's just my own mind wanting, you know, other things outside of it? And so this thought comes to me, authenticity is backed by real feelings. And so I look inside, and I look for the real feelings, and I just instantly start crying. Oh man, I was overwhelmed immediately. And then I realized that the mind is deceptive. I can't trust just the fact that I'm crying, that, like, I'm, you know, hopelessly in love with this one girl. And eventually I got over this craving, which is very positive and good. Like, I feel a lot better about this now than I did 10 days ago, which is a good thing, to be completely honest with you. But, you know, I still like her, but, like, you know, whatever happens, happens. I don't care. Anyway, so day 3, this feeling that I've written down is, quote, this mind that kept hitting me was, this thought that kept hitting my mind was, I'm broken, please stop. Like, I am done with this. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Kateri. I try my best. You know, again, honesty, it's a good habit. You should always be honest. But I've only become much more vulnerable in, like, the past 10 days. And being open to being vulnerable and letting myself, because that's really far more important than not. Here, this is kind of, that's going on. Okay, yeah, so day 3, this feeling is like, I'm broken, please stop. Like, my body was resisting, my mind was resisting. I don't want to be here. I don't want to sit for an hour, for 75 minutes, for 2 hours and listen to, you know, chanting in Pali, this ancient Indian language. But my determination was there. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to leave. You know, people drop out of the course. That's the other thing. On, like, day 2, the guy to my right, you know, everyone kind of has a square in the meditation hall, and it's a big grid. On day 2, the guy to my right left. He quit. He dropped out. On day 4, the guy to my left, in front of me, left. It was like, yeah, he's gone. And it's funny, on day 5, the guy to my left. And I thought he was doing so great. We were, like, vibing out. We were having a great time together. I mean, granted, we didn't say a word to each other or make eye contact or anything. But I could tell he would be having a good session, and I would be having a good session, and I could feel the connection there. And I really wanted to, like, talk to him after the course and say, like, yeah, man, like, I really felt some genuine feeling there. But he left on day 5. He quit. So I never learned his name or anything. I never got to talk to the guy, which is a real bummer, actually. I was so demoralized when that happened. But whatever. So yeah, this feeling of I'm broken, please stop. There was I was discovering a lot of physical pain when I would sit. And I've kind of mentioned this before, but if you lose the balance of your mind, it's really the desire to not be in pain that will make the pain worse. And it'll make you suffer more, like, oh, I don't want to sit through this. I don't want to sit through this. Maybe if I just move my leg. No, I don't want to sit through this. I don't want to sit through. And you're trying to stay balanced. But if I just move I'm trying to stay balanced. But if I just move my leg. And eventually you are bound to move if that's how you're reacting. The idea is, say I just want to move my leg, pops into my head. You have to ignore it. You have to keep your focus where it was if you don't want to move it. You can't be moved by this negative reaction. In fact, if you're not moved by the negative reaction, then you'll let go of it. Anyway, a lot of pain when sitting, desire to not be in pain makes the pain worse. The teacher would say, so we met with the teacher. So there's, like, Goen Kaji, who's the like main teacher, and so he in 1991 recorded a bunch of videos of him teaching the course and giving lectures and discourses and stuff on Buddhism and topics in that, and and meditation technique. He'd also the meditation instructions were recordings of Goen Kaji, and they would play them in the meditation hall, and he would explain, you know, do this. He has the best voice. He talks so slowly, and it's so deep, and he's like, practice patiently and persistently, and you are bound to be successful, Work diligently. You know, he would say that kind of thing, and it was so great because he just has the best voice, and and so that's kind of how it would go. So, but anyway, so he wasn't on site obviously because he's like, he might even be dead. I don't know. But that was a while ago that he recorded this, and it's still played in meditation centers all over as part of the Vipassana meditations. But there is an assistant teacher on site, though, who is there to answer questions and tell you about the technique if you have any questions and stuff. And you would meet with the assistant teacher. The men have a man assistant teacher, the women have a woman. And you would meet with him with a couple other students in this little room, and, you know, he'd ask you, are you feeling sensations? Are you feeling breath going in? Are you feeling sensations everywhere on the body? etc. And so one thing he would say is like, people go up to him and be like, oh, I feel so much pain, like this is awful, what do I do? And he's like, well, does the pain kill you? And they're like, no, you're still here, right? And he's like, okay, well, you should just sit through it then. If it doesn't kill you, just sit through it, and it'll go away if you let it. And I realized this to eventually be true, but I sat through some pretty awful things before that. But actually on day 3 in the evening, I had felt a bit of back pain during one sitting. It's kind of stiff, like you're just sitting up straight all day. And during one session in the evening, I remember distinctly feeling some pain in like my right shoulder and stuff. And I wasn't moved, I just stayed, breath going in, breath going out. And the pain actually went away. And I was like, he's not wrong. It works. It works. So if you do meditate, pain is, because of this, becomes such an important part of my meditation practice. It might sound masochistic or silly, but if I'm not in pain, I'm not going to work nearly as hard, So that's why I sit for so long when I meditate at home, because, if I don't meditate more than 30 minutes, I won't feel any pain. If I don't meditate more than 45 minutes, I won't feel a lot of pain. And I kind of need to feel a lot of pain to challenge myself, to really push myself. Okay, I'm doting on this way too long. Day 4. So that's the first 3 days. Day 4 was, you have to be able to accept failure if you want to be able to accept success. And so I mentioned day 3, I was thinking, I'm broken, please stop. Day 4 was, I am broken, please stop. Like, it was, whatever I was feeling on day 3 looks like a beach. Like, I'm just chilling on the beach on day 3. That's what day 4 made that look like. I felt so destroyed. I was beyond broken up. But, I heard an interesting quote a while ago. Once you realize that you're broken and that you've always been broken, that's when you're on the mend. You're always on the mend, which is really, it's great. But oh God, I felt horrible. And so, because the thing is, you're meditating, you're trying to sit through this pain, and it's awful, and eventually you do move, and you give in. And for a moment, you can think, oh God, I've failed, like, oh, I'm such a failure, oh, I moved, I didn't just sit through it. But if you get caught up in that, then it's like, you're not doing yourself any favors. So that's the idea behind this quote. You have to be able to accept failure if you want to eventually be able to accept success. You have to be able to move forward when these failures occur and say, okay, I just tried my best and I'm going to try my best again. And that's what matters. It doesn't matter that I, failed. It doesn't matter that I kicked my leg out when my leg was in extreme pain. What matters is I got over it and I moved my leg back and now I'm meditating again. I meditated just about every minute that they recommended you meditate on the schedule. You don't have to keep the schedule exactly, but they recommend it. And I think the reason for this is you're bound to hit failure. You're bound to hit like, oh God, I don't want to do this right now. But you could still force yourself to do it. And I was really forcing myself to do it. I was feeling such strong determination, such conviction that this would work and this would help me. And it did, because I forced myself to just run at the wall, and I would hit the wall face first and fall over. And then I would just run at the wall again and run, and, just repeating this process. And I was getting so much stronger, even though I was breaking down mentally, physically. I was in so much pain, but I would not leave. I would not move. I would not, I'm going to sit through this, and eventually I'll be able to do it, and it'll be great. But even though right now it sucks, I will eventually be able to really do something great with this. Yeah, so feeling of so much mental and physical pain on day 4. I felt there was this one session. So we you have sessions that are at particular times, and I'm walking to the meditation hall from my room, and oh my God, I felt like I was climbing a mountain. Like every single step, I was walking so slowly too. Every single step just took effort. And it's like 200 feet. It probably took me 15 minutes to walk it. And my mind was just, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then I got there, and I was just like, just get me in the door. Like, just get me in the door, please. and you get in the door and you sit down and then you begin to meditate. And I had a fantastic session because I was able to get myself there, and that's what matters, you know. You find strength within yourself in places that you don't expect. It's the challenging of yourself that makes you discover this strength. If you never challenge yourself, you'll never find that you can, you know, sit for an hour and through ridiculous pain. Like, you have to just do it and force yourself to do it and accept the failure as it comes, which is bound to happen, and recognize it's bound to happen, and then eventually you'll be able to accept the success too, and you'll be able to do it, and it'll be great. And yeah, and then you'll just push yourself harder. You'll find a new goal, like, can I do that? Which we'll talk about on day 8. But yeah. So every ounce of strength just to walk to the hall. One thought, all I can do is my best. I will just sit as well and as long as I can. So they introduced this rule of sittings of strong determination that I was talking about before. You can't open your hands, your eyes, or your legs. You can't move, basically. And they introduced this rule, like, oh, by the way, you can't move for the whole hour, not an inch. And I'm just thinking, oh no! Like, as if this wasn't hard enough. Like, screw you. But, you know, it's a new rule. You should have. The course is outlined beautifully, okay? Like, they force you to go through this. Like, it's up to you if you rise to these challenges or not. But you will be challenged. I think anyone who does a Vipassana course and gets through the whole thing is a very special kind of person, because that's the kind of person who has been through just about every kind of mental and physical pain and has said, no, I'm going to stick through this. Again, hardest thing I've ever done. I talked to Delaney. I think she had said it was, I forget if she said it was the hardest thing she'd ever done or one of them. But you can't just, like, do it without being determined. You know, it has to be you that pushes you through this. Anyway, yeah, okay. Yeah. Super cliche 4 chords, but we're gonna go with it. Anyway, day 5. You can leave your negativity outside. You don't need it in here. This actually came to me during the 4:30 to 6 a.m. Session, because I was so negative for the first hour of it. I was like, I just want to be in bed. Like, I know I'm forcing myself to do this, so I'm not going to leave, but man, this sucks. Like, I hated everything. But, you know, you can leave your negativity outside. You don't need it in here. It's not going to benefit you to resist, to think, oh my God, this sucks, like, blah, 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 blah. No, that's just going to distract you. You're going to lose your balance of mind. That's not the point. The point is to remain equanimous, to remain tranquil, to remain flat, to not react in negative ways. And you're kind of understanding this on a more experiential level by this point. Again, this course is all about experiential wisdom. Not just wisdom, but it's wisdom that you live. It's wisdom that you experience. I experienced the great strength within myself. I didn't just hear about it, like, I didn't hear someone say, oh, you have great strength. You know, or I didn't like read, oh, you have great strength. No, I experienced myself having great strength and pushing myself through it, which is probably the most valuable thing that I got out of this, is that I can do anything, and I know I can do anything, and I could just do it. I just gotta do it. So that was a pretty amazing thing. But you also learn you don't need negativity. You can just get rid of the negativity, and it becomes a lot easier. This is a predecessor to another important thought I had on day 7, which I'll come to in a minute. But this is just foreshadowing. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. Okay, so you can leave your negativity outside. You don't need it in here. On day 5, I was feeling less resistance to the practice. So I was finally kind of on the upshoot a little bit. I was still resisting. I was still negative, like, maybe half the time. But that's a lot less than, like, all the time, which it makes a very big difference, too, mentally. I was still feeling a lot of unpleasant pain, unfortunately. But day 5, you go in and you meet with the teacher again, and one of the things he asks you is, do you think you can sit for an hour without moving? Because, you know, that's a rule, like, you have to do it. And other people are like, yeah, I think so, and I'm like, maybe. The thing was, I was feeling immense pain in my right leg. My right leg is the biggest bitch in the universe. I'm sorry, but, like, this thing gave me more crap than any person I've ever met, like any like other body part. My other body parts were fine for the most part, except on day 5 I was feeling a lot of back pain on my right side. And so the teacher says, like, can you sit for an hour? And I'm like, yeah, my back is kind of a little much. So he's like, okay, go to the course manager and ask him for a backrest. And it's basically this tiny little chair, and it just supports the bottom of your back. But oh my god, oh, that thing saved my life. Like, I am so grateful for this tiny little chair that they gave me, that I put under my meditation cushion, and it just supported my lower back, because my back pain went away after that, or it became more manageable. You know, I've kind of always had a bad back, so it worked out. And I could just focus on the leg pain. Like, just the leg was enough. Believe me, it was on fire, like, for 30 minutes at a time. So yeah. So they give me this backrest, and so during discourse that night, so again, every night from like 7 to 8:30ish, you watch a video of Goen Kaji teaching and stuff, and you're allowed to just kind of sit back, relax. So now I had this backrest to chill with. And so I'm leaning back into this thing, and I started crying. I was so happy. Like, just tears of joy. It made such a difference to me to be able to just, to just relax. So that was incredible, and I felt so good. Like, I can just relax here, listen to this incredible man with this incredible voice, talk about another incredible man, the Buddha, and the Dhamma, the law of nature, that is like, this is all gonna come together, and it'll make sense for you soon if it hasn't yet. So that's what it's all about, you know. And in that moment, I was just so unbelievably moved and emotional and happy that I just was bawling tears of joy. Oh my god, it felt so good to just sit in this tiny little chair and like, I don't know, man. It was a powerful moment. I finally didn't hate everything, you know. I was getting to be pretty okay with this whole thing. Really enjoying myself, so. Just really happy. Oh, I feel really happy now, actually. Just thinking about that moment. That was one of the high points of the 10 days. Okay, continuing. Day 6. The past and the future are powerless compared to the present. And this is something you're bound to realize eventually, just living your life. There's always memories popping in, the past. There's always anticipation of what's to come, planning. You feel anxiety towards it almost. You almost never feel pleasant feelings when things come to you in the past, or things, get in your mind about the future. You almost never feel good because of these things. Actually, I guess pleasant memories can come, but then they fade, and it's like, and then it's gone. Whereas the present moment, you can always enjoy if you just remain equanimous, because you can always appreciate that you're alive and you're in this moment, and there's always so much that you can feel and pay attention to. And so this is why the present is so unbelievably powerful, because any memory you have, doesn't matter how strong the memory is, you'll never feel it half as much. You'll never feel it a millionth as much as you can feel this moment. Same with the future. You can anticipate what a moment will be like. You can think, oh, I'm going to say this, or I'm going to do that, and I'm going to feel this, or feel that. But until you're there, it's not the same. It's not the same at all. It's completely different, actually. So the present is the source of power. And so if you realize this, you can begin your work with a foundation of strength in the present moment. You can work towards the present moment. You can recognize when I'm not present and work towards it. and say, okay, this is going to bring me back. The recognition that I'm not present brings me back to being present, and that's what's so important. I want to be here, I want to be now. I recognized that my mind was wandering out this way, and just the active recognition, you get back to being centered. And this is something this is probably the thing I've been practicing the most these past couple of days since returning to society. The feelings of being on a meditation retreat have really kind of gone away at this point. The endless relaxation of just sitting and being calm and stuff. Why are there a bunch of police outside? Sorry, I have my window over here. That's fun. Okay. Yeah, they didn't seem like they're going too crazy, so. Wow. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so coming back to my, as it's called, a householder life, where I'm not meditating every day for 12 hours. I am still doing my best to stay present in all the things that I am doing, and I'm feeling the body sensations and this and that, and it's been going good. If you can stay present, you will inevitably begin to make progress in your spiritual and emotional life. So that's my advice. If you know what presence feels like, just really try to be present as much as you can, because that's so important. Okay, past and the future are powerless compared to the present. This should always be your source of strength. And how? Well, you get this through equanimity. At least, this is my personal experience. You remain in the present when you practice equanimity, because when your mind goes in a million different ways, if you're equanimous, you don't go with it. You stay here. You don't react to the things that have come up. You just let them be. You let them go. And that's so important. No craving, no aversion. And the other thing that kept coming up in meditations is, no craving, no aversion, equanimity, tranquility, and then this other thing, no I, no me, no my, no mine. And this includes sensations, no my pain, no, my craving, just pain. It's this working towards dissolving yourself and experiencing these things just as they are, impersonally. All sensations are inherently impersonal. They've come to you, yes, but they could go to anyone, and they'll be gone in a moment. So it's this appreciation of the rise and the fall of it that is what really will give you progress on this path. And the recognition that, am I feeling this, or is it just a feeling that has come to me? But no I, no me, no my, no mine. It is just a feeling after that. And someday, if you do become enlightened, you will experience anatta, which is ego death. No self, literally, is the translation. And a big part of this is recognizing that all these things that come to you are just feelings, and they're not yours, and they will rise, and they will fall, and they will pass. Another big part of no I, no me, no mine, no mine, that I'm trying to keep track of in my life now is possessions and stuff. All this stuff you call yours, but what the heck is yours? It's not a part of you. It could be gone at any moment, and then what? Is it still yours then? No, of course not. Also, you'll die one day. Will it still be yours then? No. There's all these things in your brain that react to create these connections and cravings and basically false senses of stability. But in the end, the only stable thing is what you're feeling in this moment. And that's a big realization to make. So, food for thought, anyway. Okay. Day 6, finally, was the first day that I sat an hour without budging an inch. Even in the strong determination sittings, I just couldn't do it on day 5. I got pretty close, but then I just had to move my leg a tiny bit. Oh darn. Again, my right leg, just this thing makes me angry. But no, I learned from it. I learned more from my legs on this retreat than any other part of my body. That is 100%. In fact, they might have been my only teachers, because they were where I was constantly putting in the work. But we'll get back to that. So I sat an hour without budging for the first time. That felt so good. I'm like, I can do this. It was really painful, don't get me wrong, but I knew I could do it after that. And so then I sat it the second time with an hour without budging. The pain was becoming less intense. I was realizing on the experiential level, if I just let it be and I don't move my focus, then it won't be as bad. If I maintain the balance of mind, it will go away. Or it wouldn't even go away, but I'd be able to not focus on it, and I'd be able to not suffer from it. You know, it's so painful when you're trying to focus on your arms, and your attention includes your arm and your leg, which is on fire. You know, you can never escape it if your attention is in both of these places, but eventually your mind becomes sharp enough and balanced enough that you stay on your arm regardless of what incredible pain your leg is in. And that is the best feeling, because, you know, you're going through every single part of your body. Then you get to your leg, and it's like, oh wow, that's intense, like, whoa! And you go around and you just calmly dive into each individual spot on the whole leg and dissect the pain and feel it part by part, piece by piece. And it has no power over you at that point. You're just observing it. And that's so important. You're like, oh, that's a strong sensation. That's really what I began to think, like, oh, I can appreciate how strong this feeling is while it's still here. Because I know it'll be gone later. Like, I've got that by now. You know, it's day 6. But it would be a strong feeling, though, that's for sure. Okay, now, last 4 days, 3 days, day 7, okay. I could feel myself getting stronger at this point. It was on the upshoot. Positive things were starting to happen, like, the things that I would struggle with mentally off the pillow too were getting, I was more balanced towards them. You know, I mentioned before I was craving this, I was craving that, I was craving this girl, that girl, blah, blah, blah. I thought a lot about relationships with people, like past girlfriends and like relationships with my family and this and that. And a lot of these things really, I don't know, there was a lot of feeling that came out that was really important, that I really needed to experience. For example, this is going to be awfully vulnerable, but I'm going to say it anyway. In Buddhism, there's kind of a thinking that if your mind isn't pure and you bring negativity into the world, you hurt others, sure, but the person who gets hurt the most is yourself. And so one realization I had was about this one girl that I dated at one point, and I'm sure she knows who she is. And this girl genuinely loved me, and not that I didn't love her, but I didn't love myself at the time, you know, and I just couldn't get to the level that I needed to be at, and my reaction to it wasn't perhaps the best. Not that I was like, I'm not even going to try to defend it. But no, I didn't love her back in the same way, is I guess the best way you could put it. But I realized during this retreat that, like, yeah, I broke this girl's heart, but I think I broke my own heart more. Or maybe the same. I shouldn't, I shouldn't take all the credit, but no, I realized the incredible pain that I caused myself through this experience, and I still feel kind of interesting towards it, I guess. It's a powerful feeling, you know? But I guess on the experiential level, you know, you learn things, and you learn about how important it is to love yourself. And actually, that's a realization I had on day 7. That's not the quote I have, but on day 7, one of my thoughts was, you know, you can crave this and that and feel this pain and that pain. I had already kind of thought about the negativity and stuff, but the thought I had on day 7, I gave up a lot of cravings at once, and I said, this whole thing is going to be a whole lot easier if you just love yourself. You know, you'll make it through. You can appreciate that you'll make it through. You can appreciate all your good qualities and celebrate yourself, and not really suffer from all of these awful things that you're putting yourself through, basically. And so this was kind of a turning point, because I really just began to appreciate all of what I was going through so much more. Because I was learning so much, I was feeling these really important feelings, these really interesting connections that I hadn't thought about before, even with people who I'm close with, you know, even with my family. Like, I just dove into these relationships and got so much perspective and insight on them. And it was really, that was a very life-changing experience, I think. And my life has been changed, I guess, is the more accurate way to think about that. Because I've realized, in many ways, a law of my own nature, and it's so much more clear to me now, the nature of my own suffering. You know, things that you resist, things that you crave, things that you feel aversion towards. It's you that chooses to feel the suffering from those things, I guess. You know, it's you that loses the balance of mind, the equanimity, when you have the opportunity to maintain it. And so moving forward in my life, maintaining the equanimity in these difficult situations will obviously be kind of a priority in many ways. You know, I mean, it's so important to examine yourself and say, is this reaction going to help me? And to know if it will or if it won't. You know, and now it's so clear in my mind, the way that I act, is this going to benefit me or am I going to suffer for this, you know? And it's really good being able to know that about yourself, you know. So I don't know if that makes all that much sense, saying it, but that was a big realization that I had. So yeah, that was pretty intense. Okay, so continuing. So day 7. Day 7, quote, "You can sit through anything if you're brave enough." So again, I came to this powerful realization about my own life. Can I do this, basically? This examination of how I would act, and this examination of if I react in this way, it will cause suffering, and if I react in this way, it won't. And so I gained this intense vigor, this vigilance, this diligence within me to sit through basically anything. You can sit through anything if you're brave enough. Emotional pain, physical pain, mental pain. It doesn't matter. If you maintain that balance, if you force yourself through it, if you push yourself through it, if you're brave, if you're confident that what you're doing is right, that sitting through it and not moving will help you. If you can reach that point, you can sit through anything, go through the most unpleasant thing in the world, and be better off for it. So that is what happened to me on day 7. So obviously an important thing to realize. So at the time, this led to what was at the time the most painful experience of my life. So I sat through one of the 75-minute afternoon sessions, didn't budge an inch, and I was forcing myself to not budge an inch. You know, I had this intense conviction that I need to do this. I need to, you know, just sit through this. It's funny, actually, because on day 6, I had sat through the 75-minute session, and I was in horrible pain towards the end of it, and I'm like, oh my God, I just have to move. I just have to. And so I move, and then the bell rings 2 minutes later. I sat through about like 73 minutes and then gave in. And I felt so freaking awful, man. I just could have made it. But, I lost track of time too, so that was another thing. But like, oh man, if I just sat through the extra 2 minutes, I would have known I could do it. And so then on day 7, I had this conviction. I'm not going to go 73 minutes again. I'm going to go the whole time and not, freaking move an inch. And I was in so much pain. Again, the most painful experience of my lifetime at the time. But I did it. I didn't move, and it was great. It's interesting to think about this too, because the meditations still felt as difficult as they did on, say, day 4, which was probably the most difficult day. But after day 6, I knew I could make it. I knew I would make it through this thing that I was putting myself through. Gonkaji on day 6 says, if you've made it this far, a weak-minded person cannot make it this far. So that gave me a lot of confidence, because if you've made it past day 6, you realize that you're in the process of learning something very important, and that you need to be there, and otherwise you'll miss it, you know, and so that's why it's important to make it to day 6 and then keep going. You know, you gain this intense passion, like, I'm going to do this. So I knew I could make it after day 6. I knew I was going to sit this thing through. Anyway, on day 7, I was going into the technique, you know, deeper and deeper. We're breaking stuff up and whatever. And so I'm dissecting each individual body part so intensely, you know, I'm like, no awareness of my body, just the sensations as I'm going around. And I had a pretty intense, good meditation session, and it was really bizarre because I walk outside afterwards and I felt like I must have been like hallucinating or something, because I was looking at trees and just dissecting every single thing I was looking at. I would look at a tree and like look at the branch and look at the bud on the branch, and then look at, you know, like the brick and look at the quality of the brick and the textures and all this different stuff. I was literally, I could not look at something without just going straight into it and just breaking it apart into smaller and smaller bits, as I had been doing with my body just moments before, which is a really interesting, kind of strange, kind of powerful feeling. I felt like I might have been going crazy a little bit, which is kind of scary, but eventually it passed, so that's good. But it was like, like my mind is going kind of fast right now, like, but it was good. It was a really good session. Okay, that was day 7. So, and again, the quote was, you'll survive everything. You can sit through anything if you're brave enough. Another one that I didn't write down, but that is obviously important, is this whole thing will be a lot easier if you just love yourself. And that is when I really gave in to just let myself do this. Like, I'm gonna do it. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know, cravings will arise, that's fine. Temptations will arise, pain will arise. I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit through it. Day 8 was probably my best day. And my motivation was the highest on day 8, because I knew that I would make it, and I knew that I could do it, and I knew that that I was going to do it. So that's what was really important. So on day 8, the quote, kind of a more intense version of day 7, the quote is, you'll survive everything that doesn't kill you. So I mentioned that day 7 I had what was at the time the most painful experience of my life. Day 8 was when I had the actual most painful experience of my entire life. So I knew I could sit through all this pain all of a sudden because I was making it through the hour sessions. I made it through the 75-minute session. My mind was accepting the pain, and it was not losing its focus. It was staying perfectly equanimous, and you know, God damn it, I'm gonna sit through this, and I'm stronger than it. So day 8, I don't know why I did this, but it was to challenge myself, right? So day 8, I'd been sitting just normal cross-legged. Day 8, I'm like, okay, if I can sit through this pain, I'm gonna sit half lotus. So this is half lotus. I don't know if you can see my legs on there, but basically my inside leg is tucked in on top of the other. And so I did this because I knew it would be more painful than just like normal cross-legged, and I wanted to challenge myself to sit half lotus. It's a lot more painful, actually. And so the actual most painful experience of my life was in a pagoda cell, and I sat for the whole 75-minute session again. And it was also probably the best meditation session I've ever had, but it was the most painful experience of my entire life. And I didn't move for the whole of the 75 minutes. My legs were I couldn't walk afterwards, like legitimately. It took me 10 minutes practically of like sitting down and crying and laughing and like, what the heck, basically, to eventually finally be able to walk again. But yeah, literally during the session I was praying for death, because I had this such strong conviction, if it's not going to kill me, I'm not going to move. But I was praying for death because I was in so much pain. But the reason this meditation session was so good was not because of the pain, is because I was talking before about like this dissolution of the body and breaking down into subtle vibrations. In examining my legs, it was all subtle vibration. I mean, it was intense vibration, but there wasn't anything solid. There was no solid pain that would interrupt my flow of attention as I went through it. And so I firmly remember this, my legs dissolved. I stopped feeling the sensation of having legs, and I just felt the vibration of having legs. And so then the parts of my other body dissolved, but not fully really. I didn't feel bhanga, but I began to feel the beginnings of it kind of through my legs, which were gone, essentially. Again, intense pain, but through firm non-reaction and I'm lucky that it was handed to me in this way by my body, that nothing strong was going on there. And actually, now that I think about it, for the first 45 minutes, I was working through strong, solid sensations. But by dissecting these again and again, eventually they gave way to subtle sensations, vibrations. So my legs dissolved, and my attention was fluid throughout my entire body. And so I was able to do I would go inside, I would search the surface, I would search underneath, and I would do the thing with the planes, where I would go plane through my body and feel inside and outside all at once. I would go this way, this way, this way, this way, and it was incredibly pleasant. Even though I was in extreme pain, because my attention was so strong and I was so perfectly equanimous that I could feel so much so quickly. And I reached the stage where in one breath I could scan my entire body, and in another breath I could scan my entire body, and again, and I was just going through, and it was amazing. I had never ever experienced that again, actually, after that. And again, it was the most painful experience of my life. I don't wish anyone to sit in half lotus or lotus position for over half an hour if they've never, if they're, you have to know what you're getting into because it's painful. But if you're determined, try it. Don't move. Don't move, I dare you. If it doesn't kill you, you'll survive it. The other thing on day 8 was that I mentioned that continuous practice thing before, and so I would rest my head by literally just zoning out, or kind of zoning in. It's hard to really describe, but even with my eyes open, I would stop giving a crap what I was seeing, and I would just focus on all the sensations in my body as they arose and passed away, and I was able to completely rest my head and basically took a nap while being fully awake. It was amazingly relaxing. My mind was at rest completely, firmly, deeply, even though I was just sitting outside on the steps of the pagoda, or a chair in front of the pagoda. Side note, the pagoda, they gave me a cell in the pagoda. It's basically a closet, but it's a very dark room, and they give this to you on day 8 and 9, or they gave it to me on day 8 and 9 as a new student, and I really, really enjoyed meditating in there because it's so quiet and it's so dark too. It's a good environment for meditating. The last time I cried for the whole retreat was on day 8. I was overwhelmed at breakfast. I was so much had come up at this point. So much had passed through me, and I had just tried my best to sit through it and not move. But oh my God, I was so exhausted of all this repeated day after day, sitting through all this pain and suffering. At breakfast, I'm just eating my oatmeal, and I'm about to take a bite, and I just couldn't move. I dropped my fork, and I'm just I cried so hard. I was so overwhelmed. But then after that moment, I was rock solid for the rest of the retreat. I didn't cry again the rest of I didn't even feel remotely close to crying for the rest of the retreat. I just felt more or less good, I guess, about what I was doing. I felt, again, that determination, I can do this. But all the strong emotional response to what I was feeling, I had passed. Because crying isn't equanimity, is the thing. And so being moved to cry would be because basically I had lost equanimity and something powerful had come up and passed through, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. This happened. I let out some serious emotional pain that I knew I had been feeling. So, so crying is not bad. You should never be afraid to cry. Usually I'll want to cry and I won't be able to. That's much more common for me. I'm I just want this to go through me. I just want to cry. I just want it to pass, and then I won't be able to cry. It's hard to motivate yourself to cry sometimes. But during this retreat, I was so emotional, and I would cry at random times because I would feel so much stuff. I feel so much pain and craving and all that, and I would just want to be free of it. And I was free of it by the end, which is so important. I'm trying to think if I was going to say anything else there. I got a little thing on my phone. Hang on. Bloop. Okay. Continuing. we're almost done. I've been talking for a really long time. I don't know. I'm just gonna finish, even though this has been really long. I'm just gonna finish because I'm going away tomorrow too, so I won't be able to finish this for a while after that. So I do want to finish, and I'm almost done. I also want to play guitar. Day 9, we're almost done. The only connection between all the places you have been, the people you have met, and the things you have done is you. And this is very important to realize because this is what gives meaning to your life. You must understand. All of these things that happen and go and come and rise and fall and pass away, they are experienced by someone, and that someone is you. Everything that happens to you happens to you, and not just anyone. Okay, and it's important to recognize this. Even if you do eventually give up yourself, you still are founded in this physical structure in some way, shape, or form. And that's very important. You know, the path is your path. And yeah, so the leading up to your path also is part of your path. You know, walking in the spiritual road, something has to lead you to the road itself. And every experience is unique. You know, this thought came to me because I was having really, really intense, vivid, lucid, wild dreams. I was going deeply into my mind and finding kind of bizarre, scary things. And this is kind of what happens when the mind is allowed to blah, 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 you know? But, yeah. The thing is, in these dreams, random people from different points in my life that would never have met or known or experienced each other would know each other, and they'd be in the same places. And literally just random people, not even like friends all the time, not even, literally just acquaintances. Like just other students at Hamilton College, for example, that I never hung out with or like consider myself friends with, but that I, you know, I actually remember like individual people's names, and I won't even bother going and embarrassing them. But because we don't even have a connection, you know, I just know who they are. But they would appear in my dreams, and things would happen between us, and like strange things. And yeah, the other thing was fully developed songs would pop into my head, both when I was awake and when I was asleep. And I knew that these I would never remember, so I just recognized that these are distractions. But I've never been an amazing songwriter, I don't think. It always takes me a lot of time. But I was going deeply into my mind, and so my mind was just producing fully fledged music. It was producing lyrics and chords and all this stuff all at the same time. It was fully formed ideas just popping out of me, wanting to get out, wanting to escape into the world. And so maybe as I keep up my meditation practice moving forward, I'll be able to, you know, to write music better. But I'm not going to try to write music based on distractions. You know, that's not the point. The point is to examine and to feel. And my approach towards music has changed very much over the course of these 10 days. Anyway, day 9 is kind of the last day to fully work. I mentioned before that day 10 is the day the silence is broken, and metta day, where you practice compassion and stuff. So day 9 is your last serious work day. And I was kind of bummed out about this because I was hoping to find a lot of motivation, like, oh my god, I've finally done it, like, let's just push through, power through to the finish. I found a lot of exhaustion and agitation instead. But I don't know. I was a little demoralized by how hard it still was, I guess is kind of the point. And it never really gets easier to sit through that much pain. What gets easier is keeping the balance of your mind. But I was glad it was over, is the thing. I think that also kind of disrupted the balance of my mind, which is probably part of it. So anyway, day 10. The wind feels best when you walk straight into it. And this has become one of my favorite sensations. You know, you're constantly aware of these sensations as you're going about your 10 days. And there would be winds outside, and I would just, just let my hair go and like blow through it. And I love that feeling. And I still love that feeling. And whenever there's wind, I just stick my face straight into it now because it just feels so good. I love the feeling of wind now. This is like my favorite thing in the world now. So, I mean this both metaphorically and literally. The wind feels best when you walk straight into it. And so what this means also is, you'll have challenges, and it's going to feel best if you just do it, and you just go for it, and you just power through, and put confidence in your own strength and your ability to do it. Recognize that failing is inevitable. That's, perfectly okay. What matters is what you do when you fail, not how you fail. When you fail, you need to remain positive. You need to remain equanimous too. You can't be hard on yourself. You have to remain positive. And this is such a valuable lesson that I think I've really learned, So, important things to realize. Anyway, 10th day, the silence is finally broken. After 10 days of not talking to anyone and not looking at anyone and not touching anyone, you can finally do these things again. And immediately, I felt off balance. I felt like my mind just, I lost equanimity so quickly. And this kind of bummed me out because I knew I'd be going back to society and I'd have to deal with people and stuff. And I was dreading it to a little degree. I just wanted to maintain this really balanced calmness that I had found within my mind. And so the silence is broken and I instantly became very agitated. That's not to say I didn't want to talk to people and meet people. I met some really, really great people, and a lot of them I'm still in contact with, and like a bunch of people in Colorado I'm gonna probably see, decently often. But there were also a lot of people who I just didn't really want to talk to, and who I didn't really feel the need to talk to, and who if I did talk to, we wouldn't have really connected or talked about anything that meaningful. And so these people I just avoided, and I didn't want to be around them even. You can kind of tell people's vibrations, I think. And nothing against the people, but it's just where my mind was at the time. I didn't want to interact with certain people, and so I didn't, and that's fine. It felt a lot better to kind of just keep my distance. And thinking about this now, there are a lot of people that I need to cut out of my life, actually, which is kind of sad to think about, but I'm so aware of the sensations, right? And there's some really negative people in my life that I just need to get away from. It's as simple as that. So, no offense to, no one's doing anything wrong. Everyone's on a different path and stuff. But, you just vibe with some people and other people you don't. And, like, there's some people in my life who are just a bad influence, I just want to get away from. And that's just how it is. So anyway, continuing on, and we're almost done here. Breaking the silence did feel good in some ways. I genuinely connected with a lot of people. I saw Delaney again. Oh my god, I was so happy to see her. We hung out, we talked, etc. Of course, we knew we'd be driving for like 12 hours the next day, so we didn't need to, talk that much. But it was really great to see her and to see other people and just to be alive again, like fairly normally. Yeah. At night I was really agitated though. Trying to go to sleep was pretty difficult. But yeah. Oh, I have written down. Both Delaney and I looked really incredible. After you purify all this pain from yourself, you I think you physically noticeably change in appearance. Like, I don't know if you guys can see anything different in me. I feel like I'm smiling a lot more, if anything. But I don't know. I feel like I look different. She most definitely looked different, but I think both of us looked really good, which is still do. No, I don't know. Just chilling anyway. Okay, so what now? And this will lead us to the end of this long talk. But I appreciate everyone who's watched all or part of this and who's maybe gotten something out of it, maybe just wanted to hear me talk, whatever. I appreciate that people listen and are curious about this kind of stuff, because that's part of what got me into it. I thought it was really interesting. So anyway, what now? So I mentioned that a lot of the pain that comes out of you on a retreat like this manifests itself physically when you would maybe expect it to be mentally. So I feel like my mind has been significantly purified, but I didn't think all that many crazy deep thoughts. Of course, during the 10 days, especially during the first 7 days, I would be wrapped up in thought a lot of the time, and I had to work through some stuff there, and I realized that. But the change and the work that got put in, it just changed my mindset more than anything else. I didn't necessarily work anything out, but I feel so much less of a need to work things out. I feel so less stressed about everything. I feel so much less desire to crave or to, feel pain or aversion towards things. I just feel so content to be just however I am right now. And I'm so much more aware of how I am right now, which is probably the biggest thing that I learned and biggest thing that I got out of this. I feel really good because of that. I don't feel like I necessarily sorted out my life, but I don't need to sort out my life, and I don't feel the need to sort out my life. And that is a really, really good feeling, because I can just go about my day and just relax and not worry about, is this gonna be a good thing or a bad thing, or should I do this, should I do that, because all this stuff is just constant. And it torments you, and it's awful because your mind just goes and goes and goes, and you never give it a rest. But I'm finally giving myself so much more rest, and I feel so incredibly good because of that. And that's been the biggest change in coming back to my life. Since not having technology in my phone for 10 days, using my phone has been a real experience. I don't like using my phone actually at all, because it's just a constant reminder of the outside world, and it pulls you away from this place of within. I've been so centered, and by using my phone, it'll just pull me out. Checking my email was the last thing I wanted to do. Eventually I did, because I got to function as a normal human being and a functional member of society. But man, I did not want to check my emails, and thank God nothing too crazy or urgent was in there. Same with checking my Facebook. I didn't check my Facebook for 3 days. No, that's not true. I checked it after a day. But it's these things in your life that cause you to get distracted. I don't want those, and I recognize now that I suffer because of those. So, and I'm much more willing to just leave them and not worry about them. Which is, again, I've given myself so much more space in my life, and I feel so thankful and relaxed and good because of it. The other thing is, I've been eating this really good organic vegetarian food for 10 days, eating 2 meals a day, and even that, you don't even get hungry because you're just sitting down all day and not exerting yourself. And just returning to this world of processed food and oily food and food that's meant to taste good and be fatty and stuff, I noticed what I'm putting into my body so much. I'm still eating vegetarian, and I'm gonna eat vegetarian for as long as I can because I feel really healthy. But I noticed the difference in the food though immediately, because it just has all this other crap in it that it throws you off. It throws you off balance, And it's amazing to recognize these things, because I was living like that for 22 years without even noticing, and now I eat some oily pasta or something, and I immediately just feel awful. I don't want to eat oily pasta and get thrown off balance. But it's hard to avoid is the thing. And I've maintained a, smaller diet too, which has helped and all that. And I feel really healthy. I have absolutely no desire to drink or take any drug in the world right now, because it just sounds so impure. My body is so clean right now, and I don't want to dirty it, So there's been a really positive, it's really positive to feel that way. But at the same time, returning to society, there's so many cravings and pains that you can't really avoid, which I'm just so much more aware of now. And the thing is, now that I'm aware of them, the more important thing is to just remain equanimous. It's to notice, okay, I feel this, and it will rise and fall and pass, and I shouldn't get, all tied up about it. And you focus on the physical sensation as opposed to the mental structure and all that. So it's been okay, and things have passed really well. The other thing that I've really noticed, so Tuesday, I had my reactor physics class. So I'm a nuclear engineer, in case you didn't know that. Anyone can watch this stuff, I don't care. So I'm a nuclear engineer, right? And so I'm a grad student, and so I'm in this class called Introduction to Nuclear Reactor Physics, which is my hardest course I've ever taken, possibly. Well, it's hard to say that because it's very different than most courses I've ever taken. But it's extremely difficult. It's my most difficult course right now, for sure. And so I get back to this course on Tuesday, and, it's after spring break, and the teacher says, he goes up to the board, quiz Thursday, homework due next Tuesday, midterm next Thursday, and I'm just going, oh God, the sensations immediately came to me, extremely powerful pain, like negative aversion towards things. Oh, I felt awful the whole day, actually, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, this is going to pass, this is going to pass, this is going to pass, but I had an awful day yesterday because of starting with that class. I felt pretty good before that class. It would not leave my mind until after that class. Hang on, this is just, pardon me. Whoop. Sorry. My phone is slowly dying. We're almost done though, so I think it'll be okay. I hope. So yeah, so that really threw me off, and that was really awful. So screw my teacher. Like, you can't just do that, man. Like, you get back from break, oh, here's a ton of work. Before that we had like 3 homeworks over 3 months practically, and now quiz, midterm, and a homework in a week. Come on, man. A lot of people have had that complaint about this teacher in the past. But anyway, frustrating. Other changes. So I've noticed a change in when I go to meditate. During the 10 days, I'd be very aware of my sensations and stuff, obviously. When something negative would come up, I'd be very aware of it. Something like pain and stuff, I'd be very aware of it. It's really interesting because now it's kind of like the opposite. Now that when I meditate, I don't feel nearly as much pain, which is actually kind of a bummer because it was so important for me to work through the pain as part of my meditation practice. But now I'm just less aware as a whole, and I think because of that, I'm less aware of the pain. Conversely, when I'm not meditating, now I've not felt nearly as good. I felt a lot more agitated when I'm just going about my day-to-day life, which is probably because I wish I could just meditate 12 hours a day again. It's such a simple life, like, oh, it's so calm, peaceful. Even though you're working through immense pain sometimes, you don't really have responsibilities, you don't have all this other stuff to worry about. Whereas society, I guess the biggest change in coming back to society is like, it's just sensory overload constantly, I mentioned the food, but like the people too, like there's people everywhere and I have to interact with them and like look at them and stuff. And there's smells everywhere and there's like buildings and stuff and it's big. Like I probably didn't leave more than an acre, maybe like 5 acres for the whole 10 days. And now I'm like back in the world and it's crazy. So it's weird. But anyway, these are kind of the changes coming back to life. I'm trying my best to always remain equanimous. I've had a really good day today, thankfully, which is good. No craving, no aversion, no I, no me, no mine. I'm trying to express a lot of compassion towards people. That's been a big thing. If someone does something bad, I don't feel hurt anymore. I'm doing my best not to feel hurt or whatever. People are going to act how people are going to act. I'm going to do my best to be equanimous, to accept, to tolerate, and to express love and compassion towards anyone that I can, which is a big, I I just feel so much more determined to live in that way right now, which is really good. Okay. No I, no me, no mine, no mine. If something bad happens to me, I don't really care. I'm very sharing right now, and like, I feel generous and stuff. And I'm trying to enjoy peace whenever I can. So yeah. Okay, now some closing advice, and then my phone is surely gonna die. I hope this doesn't get like lost. The risk I'm gonna take. Okay. Closing advice: be brave. Exercise your determination, and you will find it. So really, try your best to walk straight into the wind, and to live difficultly, to live vicariously, and that sort of thing. Challenge yourself, because if you don't challenge yourself, what the heck are you doing? You're just comfortable. Being comfortable is so much less comfortable than being uncomfortable, I've found, and I feel so happy to be uncomfortable a lot more now. One of my favorite quotes is Eleanor Roosevelt: "Do something every day that scares you." And this is kind of a challenge because we live pretty boring lives, but you can still do it, I think. And I'm going to try to, follow that advice as best I can. So do your best to practice determination. Challenge yourself. Break down your own walls. Because you'll find that you can, and that's the more important thing. Don't go along with the surface all the time. So again, the mental structure is constantly changing, but don't worry about the mental structure. Worry about the physical sensations that accompany it. Because the mental structure is based off the physical sensations, and if you can go through the physical sensations and not react to those, that is when you'll make progress on the spiritual meditative path. That is when you'll begin to eradicate your own suffering, and that is when you'll work essentially on becoming happier. Love compassionately and love everyone. We all are the same. We're all one and the same. I'm not separate from you, you're not separate from me. We're all just in this together, man. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, and you have to respect that and appreciate that. It takes a lot of time and practice to really, really feel it. But this is why you have to recognize the fact that it feels good to help others and feels good to give to others. And because you're essentially just giving to yourself and bringing joy into this world, which kind of leads me to the next point. You are what you bring into the world. So if you bring positivity and you bring happiness and you bring love into the world, these are the things that you will feel. Similarly, if you bring negativity, if you bring, hate and anger, these are the things that you will feel. And this is why, being negative destroys you. So you really have to change your outlook in your own mind before you can even begin to try to help others and do that sort of thing. Even though it helps others, you have to be doing it out of helping yourself, out of examining the feeling of just feeling good for yourself and stuff. I don't know if I phrased that well, but yeah. Helping others will help you. And lastly, that's actually the point of becoming enlightened. And because once you realize that I'm not separate from you and you are not separate from me, etc., and you have eradicated your own suffering, it becomes the path to eradicate the suffering of other people. And this is why the Buddha taught for like 50 years of his life. This is why what the Buddha discovered is that by helping others to come out of their own suffering, he would further come out of his own. Okay, I don't want my phone to die and potentially lose all this. I don't know. But thank you so much for listening. I'm going to wrap up really fast here. So thank you. And if anyone has questions, again, text, message, whatever, drop me a line. Thanks for listening so much. I feel really, really grateful for all the people and everything. So yeah, thank you again. This has been a really important thing for me to do as well. So I appreciate everyone respecting that and stuff. Okay, until next time, friends, and may you be well.